Who am I? I'm Judith Margaret Evans Deverell, and I am married to Neil Sydenham Deverell, and I have 6 children, and 2 of them are from a former partner, and 4 of my children are with Neil. I have my 6 children: Bianca, Eric, Kezia and Peter, who are twins, and Felicity and Nathaniel. And I live in Totara North, Whangaroa Harbour, and far north of New Zealand. And I live in a lovely old pioneer villa in New Zealand. I mean, obviously live in New Zealand. What else? Who am I?
What do you do?
What I do, I'm a writer, and I'm supposed to be a housewife, aren't I? But I love writing, and that's my passion, I suppose. Writing what? Fiction, non-fiction, poetry, whatever. Yeah.
And you were from Wales?
Yes, from Wales, from Cardiff, from a northern suburb of Cardiff called Whitchurch.
What was it like growing up in Wales?
Probably the best thing was the view from my bedroom window of the hills, because I didn't like suburbia. I was thinking of that earlier today, actually. My feeling that I, as a child, when I got to be about 10 or 11, I just figured out that I didn't really belong in this world, and I didn't really belong anywhere, and especially not in suburbia. I couldn't stand it. And at I think I was 11, 10 and a half, 11, I did my best to escape suburbia. And so one day I thought I would just leave, and so I walked down the road, and I kept walking and I tried to get lost. I tried to lose myself so I could walk out, maybe get to the hills that I could see from my bedroom window. But when you're only 10 and a half or 11, whatever, I didn't really know. And unfortunately, I ended up going in a complete circle, and I ended up at home, walking back home, and it was very disappointing. I didn't get anywhere, but I spent a long time getting nowhere. So
So you grew up in Wales, and then what did you study? What did you become? Who were you?
I went to school on the bus, the number 24 bus from Whitchurch to Cardiff, every day from the age of 7 till 16. So my entire life from 17 to 16 was lived on the number 24 bus, on that top deck, on the front seat, and knowing nobody else on the bus, because there was nobody else in my school. And I went to a school called Clive Hall School for Girls, a posh little school in Cardiff, very small, just in a kind of a mansion that the walls around it formed a complete block, a city block. And I spent 20 years trying to get over the nightmares of that experience of school. So what else?
What sort of a family, to show the contrast of where you ended up, of how you brought up?
Okay, so I went to Clive Hall School, as I said, on bus, and my sister did also for a couple of years until they asked my parents to take her out, because it probably wasn't the right environment for her. So she went next door. We lived next door to the local high school, and you just climbed over the brick wall, and then you were in the playgrounds of the school. And I could have gone there too, but my parents wanted me to go to this little private school. So my sister got to go climb over the wall, and she was in the school. And then my 2 brothers, they were sent from the age of 7 to preparatory schools. These are boarding schools, and preparatory schools, and a few of those in Wales. And then when they got older, they went to Dauntsey's, a big public boarding school in Wiltshire, which was about 400 miles away from Cardiff, where we lived. And so I didn't see them very much, that was a bit, unfortunate, but it's okay. And our family was into sailing, and my dad had, from childhood, we always had boats. We always had dinghies. We were taught to row from time we were able to hold the oars. We were taught to row. And then Dad gradually got bigger and bigger boats. And we sailed on the Bristol Channel. And then when I was about 15, something, 14, no, from 13 on, we bought a caravan and stayed on the Milford Haven and Lorenie, the upper reaches of the Lorenie, and my dad had a yacht there, and so sailing was a very big part of our family weekends, and all sorts of things.
You ended up running away to sea.
Okay, so fast forward to when I was 20. Oh no, bit backtrack. So when I finished school, I went to a Polytech in Cardiff, again on a bus. And I mentioned that the time on the bus because that formed more and more of my isolation, I suppose, that created a sense of living in my imagination, and I created unlimited number of stories and scenarios, and wrote books and stories in my head, because I couldn't, as I said, I didn't like suburbia. I didn't feel I belonged even in this world, so I lived in my imagination. And so anyway, I went after school. I went to the Polytech to do this is crazy. I didn't know what to do when I left school, because I had been told that I was not academic enough to do what I wanted all my childhood. I wanted to be an occupational therapist and help people with craft work, but because they didn't think I would get enough O-levels, my mother decided the best thing was to prepare me for marriage. And so she thought that if I went and did a course of hotel and catering operations, a 2-year diploma course that had 21 different subjects, which were pretty practical, and maybe that would help me do something in my life. Maybe I'd know how to cook and clean a house, and maybe that would help me. So of course it wasn't anything that I wanted to do. I just obeyed my lovely mummy. I adored my mummy, and she signed me up for it. So I went along for 2 years, and it was so ridiculous, but I did learn how to cook. And we had, the best subject was social studies, where we were allowed to do a project, and it was assumed that we would do a project that was related to hotel and catering, which was supposed to be what we were training to be and do. But I did a project on early medieval costume. And I had this big enormous art book, and I filled it for a few months, drawings of medieval clothing, costume. And you can imagine the surprise of my teacher. He said, "Miss Evans, I really feel that you're not quite in the right course. I can't give you any marks for this because it's not in any way in the category in which it's meant to be done. But I think it's amazing, and I think you're amazing." But yeah, so that was funny. And so then, from then, of course, I had absolutely no intention of having a job in that field, but my father thought otherwise, and took me for a few interviews, and apparently I was overqualified to be whatever the interview took me for was like, to work in a beautiful country hotel.
You got overqualified.
I was overqualified. Yes, they just kind of needed a cleaning maid, chambermaid, and they saw that I had a diploma in management. So they said, what on earth are you doing here? And so sadly I didn't get that job because it was the only one, that's why I remember it, the only one that I would have happily enjoyed doing. It was a lovely country place. So anyway, so that didn't work. So my parents sent me to a secretarial college, the London College of Secretaries in London, Portland Place, just opposite Regent's Park. It was a residential college. And the one good thing, I did learn to type, which was very helpful. Like, I can touch type and I can write everything with my eyes shut and my hands on the keyboard and write, and I can type as fast as I can think. So it's a huge benefit as a writer to be able to type really well. But with the shorthand, I did get up to 120 words per minute, but I failed the diploma because I was 10 words short. So I failed the diploma, and so didn't want to be a secretary. My dad wanted me to be a secretary. So he took me.
And then, so how did you end up at sea? Did you get a successful job?
No.
You didn't end up with it.
Most interviews, they said, Miss Evans, did you actually go to college?
They actually asked you that?
They actually asked me, 2 people, did you actually go to college? Because my interview was just appalling. It was like I couldn't do anything. And so my dad got me a job in Cardiff with a solicitor friend of his. My dad's a chartered accountant. He had 4 different practices throughout South Wales. And so his kind solicitor friend took me on to be his secretary and gave me 3 weeks. And the poor man, he endured me for 3 weeks. I couldn't do shorthand. I'd forgotten everything. I couldn't do it at all. And so he got me set up with audio, and I couldn't do that either. And so then he got me to load the computer, and in those days the computer was the size of a garage. And so the garage next to this lovely home that was his office, the solicitor, it was a gigantic old-fashioned computer, and my job was to load in this big huge disk, big black disk, and it's called booting in, and I had to boot it in every morning. And one morning I put it in and it blew up. It blew up. Bang. And I was fired.